If one has a look at the evolution of digital payments and where it's been going to, a couple of years ago I recognized the inevitable conclusion was central bank issued digital currency. It's the only thing that made sense. And I think that that's now a broad consensus that that's the case. If one is going to achieve the benefits that digital money can really bring, it needs to be issued at the country level by the central bank, creating the biggest closed loop system in the country. When I say creating, it exists already, so that's what the central bank is. It's a closed loop payment system. I think whilst the central banks were motivated and there was increasing awareness and people were trying things, and it was with the announcement of Libra and by Facebook that the central banks got the biggest wake-up call. So when that happened, and with COVID, those two together really made it a priority for the central banks to move on that, because if they don't, they're going to be disintermediated. They're going to be cut out of the process. Because what's bigger than a central bank? Let's take the biggest country in Africa, Nigeria, 180 million people. South Africa, 50 million. Vietnam, 100 million. Facebook, 3 billion. Oops, that's a bigger closed loop. So if you don't address the market need that gave rise to Libra, then the market's going to take care of it by itself. So now that the central banks are all committed to making this happen, they've put together a working group to make it possible over a 3-month period. We can now implement this and make it happen. And for us, because we understood where the market was going way before anybody else did, we focused on addressing the biggest obstacles to achieving central bank issued digital currency. And now we're part of a process where we're working with many central banks around the world, some of the biggest, to come up with an agreed upon workable, practical solution to roll this out. And granted, it's going to take a number of years to roll it out throughout the world, but the consensus view, based on the discussions that I've been having, is that within 2 years the big ones will all have it, and some are planning, the first ones right now, and China now has led the way with their digital currency. So the jury's out, it's game on, and now one has to go about implementing the strategy, using the toolkits and rolling out the plan that for us has been working on for the last 11 years. So what's the call at 11? The call at 11 is with investors, because there's an opportunity for people to invest in this platform, in this global network of exchanges that's going to be servicing retail central bank digital currency. So I'm in discussions with a number of potential investors about participating, and we're really looking at a two-way investment. We're looking at somebody to invest in some of the early infrastructure, but we also then want the option to invest back in them through the African Wealth Fund, so that our members can own a piece of that business. And we're in discussions with a number of parties. Some are more exciting than others. Some have better strategic fits. At the end of the day, there also has to be a cultural fit. Corporatism is not for everybody. The die-hard capitalists don't get it, And then, yes, it's about leveraging, solving the three problems, and it's about how you solve those. Do you want to know what they are? the three things are also the one thing. So what the central banks want and need to do is they want to provide the blockchain technology, the blockchain, with the wallet to the end consumer. Now, they don't have a relationship with the end consumer. Central banks in South Africa deal with maybe 25 institutions.
Thanks.
Yeah, banks and other financial institutions. So, in order for the Reserve Bank to do that, there are a couple of challenges. The one is adoption. How do you actually pull that off? How do you get people to do that? Sign up for cards, download an app. How do you handle query? Just think about the practicalities of that. Then, because the challenge is then it has to be ubiquitous. Then the thing is that it's easy to do on a wholesale level, bank to bank. It's easy to do central bank to customer, but the truth is that peer-to-peer transfers is just a small part of the money ecosystem. Most people spend their money at merchants. So the merchants are key to the ecosystem. Now the problem with that is that Visa and MasterCard own the merchants, and they have a proprietary fence designed to keep out competition. And those fences are sophisticated, capital intensive, and hard to overcome. And it arises from a number of different things. One is they have a couple of billion cards in issue. Most people have more than one in the markets that they're in developed markets. Another one is that they're on the desktop, so all those card machines, right? So what was the thing that was opening that up to everybody, to competition, was the QR code. But now with MasterPass, they're moving into that space. They're going to own it. They're going to offer central bank digital currency. They're going to try and maintain that dominance over that market. And then if you have a look at the unbanked market, the banks aren't there. They can't get there. That market is unserviced. You have to have a solution for that, for the central bank strategy to work. So what we've done with FORUS is we address all of those things. So the first thing is that we've got our own QR platform that's multi-chain, multi-bank, multi-jurisdictional, which will revolutionize secure identity. If you don't have that, you can't do this. The other thing that we have is we have a very sophisticated go-to-market strategy where we've got the adoption going, where we get the first 100 million people going, which is what you need to get this to work. It's the first 100 million that are key. And we've focused on a whole bunch of unserved and underserved markets, cooperatives, different African countries, different communities, where we provide them with something absolutely critical that they need. And if you take all those communities together, you've got your 100 million. And then the other key thing that you need to have is you need to have the ability to onboard the existing merchants in the US, merchants and customers in the US. And that's where our strategy with the checks is so critical. And also what that does is it gives us a way to prove that this technology works without risking anything. Because we use the existing check rails, nothing changes there. We're just utilizing blockchain to clear the checks. So that gives us the opportunity to test this at scale in the US, get adoption in the US, which is absolutely critical to global adoption. If you think where the merchants are, where the e-commerce people are, where the tastemakers, the social media stars, if you don't have a workable strategy for the US, it's never going to work. And then the last thing you need this to scale, and it needs to be free to everybody. Now, how do you do that? Well, you have to have an advertising revenue model built in so that you can compete with the likes of Facebook and Google. By bringing all these people together, the central banks, and having billions of customers, not only do we get the chance to advertise to them, but we also cut them in on that revenue stream. And we're now living in a world where people won't just give away their data for nothing. They want to get paid for it. And this is an opportunity to pay them for it. And this is an opportunity to get people to join. Just by joining, create an asset and thereby solve the biggest problem with COVID. That's getting money into the hands of the people. And that's what's just so beautiful about the whole thing. So we're going to solve the central bank's problem. We're going to unlock the merchants from the stranglehold of Visa and MasterCard. And we're going to provide capital, seed capital, to communities who are not served. Boom. Sweet, simple, succinct, and this is where we are on our drive to the 100 million.